Hello friends, Clage back, another Punishing Grey Raven video today, and had a bit of a hiatus there. A combination of my birthday, the holiday, and then my neck of the woods getting absolutely dumpstered by a winter storm that went on for about 36 hours straight. Left me with not a lot of time to make videos and just a lot of other things I need to take care of. But now that we're kind of through that, I can get back to making some PGR content for you all and getting the channel active again. So it's been a little bit since our new patch with Liv came out, and there's a topic I've been meaning to discuss ever since we got this patch and got the news of how summoning units is going to go going forward, and that is, of course, talking about the new Phylotree Research System. So this is something that obviously has been a hot topic since it was announced and since it's been implemented into PGR. We've gotten our first ever limited non-collaboration character with Liv, and we know going forward that basically all these characters that have been announced for the upcoming patches for PGR are also going to be involved with this system. So I've been wanting to talk about this, give my thoughts on how I feel it's working and what might not be as bad as you think it is and what might actually be worse than we think it is. So there's a lot of back and forth on this discussion, so let's just kind of jump into it and talk about what this means for such an important part of PGR's gameplay and aspect of, being a PGR player. So one of PGR's hallmarks prior to this patch was, in my opinion, its gacha system is one of the most fair and most transparent in the entire genre. Rolling a new construct in PGR has always been one of those parts of the game you could more or less just set your watch to. A guaranteed no fail pity at 60 rolls. No matter what happens, you put 60 rolls into the banner, you are getting the character. You know this, you know you can't possibly whiff more than 59 times. So you get your character, no questions asked. Life is good, you move on, you get to build a brand new character. Pretty cool system, all things considered, especially considering a lot of gacha games do not extend such courtesies of 100% rate ups on new characters, or even any kind of decent pity system for that matter, especially with older gacha titles. So altering that system and introducing characters to be limited, where once the patch ends, you just straight up can't roll for them no matter what type of banner or outlet you look to try and obtain a character, is a big change. And at first blush, it's a very, very negative change. Like, that has to just be flat out a purely major negative overhaul for the game, right? And in a lot of ways, it kind of is exactly that. But, and this may surprise you, I don't really feel that for constructs that the Phylotree Nexus system it actually is all that big of a change. And in the long run, there might even be some minor benefits, especially for newer players that come into the game and don't get a chance to roll on a character during their limited banners. So let me talk about why that is. So, as mentioned, prior to the Phylotree Nexus system, once a new S rank came out, you knew that for the duration of the patch, they're 100% rate up. You get to pity, you get the character. Pretty straightforward. But what happens when the patch ends and the character is no longer on 100% rate up? Well, for the most part, that basically means there's no good way to obtain the character even prior to the Phylotree system once their patch ends. In the old patches, once a character's patch was over and they're no longer on 100% rate up, there are really only a few ways you can actually obtain an S rank character once their debut banner is gone. One is just straight up rolling on the base banner and hoping and praying that whenever you pop your next S rank, that you're going to just get lucky and they're going to pop, which is extremely unlikely considering how many S-rank constructs are now in the game. The other option, of course, is when we get the various arrival banners where you can roll on one of 3 constructs at a 70% rate up. And obviously now with the change to the Phylotree system, those characters are never going to appear in this fashion. You're never going to get a chance right now to roll on Liv at 70% rate up against some other S-rank characters. Now, I don't think that really matters. I don't think that's a big deal because, frankly, you should never be rolling on this banner anyway. There are so many opportunities to get characters at 100% rate up in PGR, even with the Phylotree system, that taking a 70% gamble on a construct just does not make sense. I have never rolled this banner with my actual tickets in the entire time I've played PGR. All of these rolls down here are the free ones I've been given when we get a patch where they give you free rolls on this banner and the event banner and the weapon banner, all that kind of good stuff. So, not having the Phylotree units go into these potential pools of 70% rate ups, I just don't feel like that's a big deal because, again, this is never an ideal way to go get a construct. It's just the risk of missing feels really, really bad. Putting 15,000 tickets into a gacha and getting the wrong character and possibly getting a wrong character that is absolutely useless to you as a meta aspect is a big old feels bad. That's not a thing you want to experience. So this part I don't think really changes much. The other ways we could realistically get an S rank construct is going back to the base banner. Every so often, usually at anniversary and half anniversary, the 100% choice resets, and you're allowed to pick basically any construct from 2 patches back and further to be a one-time 100% rate up. And once you roll an S rank, whether it's early or at the 60 pity, you're guaranteed to get that. This obviously is a bit of a backstep because the limited characters are not going to show up here. Liv is not going to show up in this list 2 patches from now and be able to be gotten at 100% rate up on the base banner with blue tickets because she's part of the Phylotree system. So that is a net loss overall, obviously. This is a nice way to either get a unit you missed, to get a unit that you rolled but wanted to get to higher evolutions but couldn't afford to do so at the time. There's a lot of benefits to this, and the limited characters not going on it absolutely is a negative, and that's not great. The other way you could get a 100% rate up on an S rank after their patch is over is basically the anniversary banners. So anniversary and half anniversary, we get the banners where we can go back and pick from a plethora of already released units, usually the vast majority of recently released units. Oftentimes the last 2 or 3 won't be on these banners, kind of similar to how you have to go 2 patches back on the standard banner. But these are a thing that we could kind of always bank on every 6-ish months with the anniversary and half anniversary, is that you'll be able to go through and get a whole bunch of units that are still meta, that you're still using on teams, and get extra copies of them, or pull your first copy if you miss them initially. And again, we probably won't be seeing any limited characters on this due to the new Phylotree system straight up going, hey, we're not going to let you roll on these outside of the Phylotree system. So there are a couple setbacks, not having the anniversary option, not having the base banner pick option. Definitely limits your future opportunities to get characters if you miss them during their debut patch. But again, that's the only 2 that really matter. The rest of them are ways that you're just not going to get a good chance on. The 70% banner just out and out sucks. It's just not a good thing to roll on. S-rank selectors that we get occasionally for patch rewards or anniversary rewards or stuff like that also exist, and we won't be able to use those to get limited characters, which is also not great. But again, usually those S-rank selectors have a cutoff point, and oftentimes they cut off multiple patches prior, where you're talking about a unit that maybe is already half a year old or older, being the newest unit you can pull from an S-rank selector. So there's always been ways to get characters after the debut patch ends, and with the new Phylotree system, that's going to be more restrictive than it was. And so with all that said, it should just be, hey, Clage, that means this is a net negative for the player base, right? And on surface, yes, I would mostly agree with that. There is a chance for some slight benefit with this system, which is that once the Phylotree system has been around for a while, I would expect that they're going to have a banner kind of similar to the anniversary banner, but it's only going to be Phylotree characters. Maybe it'll be tied to anniversaries. Maybe it'll be a thing that comes up every few patches. We don't know because obviously we just started the system. We don't have a lot of foresight going forward. But if they do a thing down the road where it's, hey, here is the return Phylotree banner. Here are the 3 or 4 characters that have been on these banners, and they're all available at 70% rate. Let's say they do the same thing they do with the event arrival banner kind of thing. Okay, that is a kind of 70% banner I wouldn't be that down on. I would be kind of okay with that because that would mean if you miss the 70% rate up, you know you're still getting a essentially very, very new character that obviously has a spot on meta teams, obviously is going to be in a meta position for a long time going forward, and that could be a benefit as a way to limit the randomness of trying to get older characters going forward. Now, it's going to depend entirely on whether Kuro wants to utilize that aspect of this limited system to kind of give us more regular shots at characters you might have missed that came out, let's say 3 or 4 patches ago, and an anniversary isn't here yet, so you know there's basically no way to get them. That could be a way to balance out the new limited system and make it feel a little bit less restrictive and more, fair to players who might miss a character or might start after a character's limited banner is over. But if they don't do that, then yes, this is still a net drawback for constructs. I just don't think it's that big of a deal overall in terms of getting new S rank constructs because in general, if you're playing PGR daily, doing your daily and weeklies, doing the event modes, all that good stuff, making sure you have enough tickets to roll a character when they debut is pretty much always a guarantee. You're always going to have enough to get 60 pulls off the event banner and get the 100% rate up copy. And that is effectively guaranteeing you a double S character because their shards will be in the Pain Cage shop. So that is kind of the nice part going forward. But where I think that the limited Phylotree system acts as a much, much larger deterrent and a much, much larger setback to players, especially free-to-play and low-spending players, is with the other 2 aspects of the limited banners, that being the Cub and the Weapon. So the Cub I don't feel also is that big of a deal because Cubs are still 100% rate up. They have a very low pity threshold, and if you're doing Norman Revival and doing your weekly stuff and all that, if you're a Battle Pass buyer, making sure you have enough pulls to get a Cub on 100% rate up is pretty easy. It's not a massive, massive ask. It's still flat out a worse situation to have a Cub be limited because in the past you could just go, oh, I didn't get that Cub when it came out because I didn't have extra tickets or I was saving for something else, and then you just go back and pick them up later at the 80% rate up, which again, 80% is not what you want, but with the low pity threshold, it doesn't feel that bad. So the Cub is just a net setback, no matter how you look at it. Making the Cubs limited is a net setback, but because they're still 100% rate up and their pity threshold is so low, this, again, is kind of a minor change overall when you get right down to it. Most players, especially free-to-play players and low-spending players, are either going to get a Cub when a character comes out, or they're not going to get it at all. They're just going to skip getting it and not bother trying to fish for the Cub. And that is perfectly okay to do with this system because not only are Cubs the cheapest thing to get and the easiest thing to guarantee to get during a new patch, in addition to that, they oftentimes aren't that impactful for making your character in terms of being able to play them, to utilize their kit well, and to do everything proper with the character. There have been plenty of Cubs over the years where it's like, hey, if you have the extra tickets and you want the boosts to your element and your attack and all that fun stuff, by all means, pick up the Cub, but not picking up the Cub is not going to make your character feel like they're unplayable or make it feel like their kit doesn't function well. So, still worse than the Construct situation, But again, I don't think the Cubs situation is all that bad either, because with 100% rate up, it just kind of is there. And if you want it, you'll be able to get it before it leaves. Where I think the Phylotree system truly and well drops the ball and puts players in a bad spot is with the weapons. This, I think, is where a limited system feels very, very, very bad. And that is because the weapons are still staying at an 80% rate up. And as a free to play player or a low spending player, it is one thing to do all your dailies, weeklies, event modes and play the game regularly and make sure you cash out all the rewards and free stuff you can get. And doing all that, you are almost certainly going to be able to afford both the construct itself and probably one 6-star weapon by rolling on the weapon banner with your weapon tickets, leftover black cards, whatever you have available, right? But what if you have just enough to roll the S rank construct and to roll one 6-star weapon, and then you miss and you don't have enough time to build up more? Well, now what? Now is where we have an actual problem, where we have an actual major setback with this system, because the weapons being limited is far and away the biggest and worst change with this system, because while weapons are always 80%, there is no guarantee that you can 100% pull a weapon outside of a S rank weapon selector ticket, and those are exceedingly rare and usually only come with, real money purchases of some type more often than not. Missing this now feels extra bad, because the one upside to the weapons not being guaranteed is that, and you've heard me say this in countless videos and guides, over the past year, is that if you can't get the weapon right now, if you can't afford it, that's fine. Kick the can down the road, come back to the banner when you can afford it, go after the 80% rate up, and at worst, you're going to have to spend 15,000 tickets worth of rolls if you whiff on the 80% the first time, because now we have the calibration system that guarantees your next 6-star after whiffing on the rate up weapon will be that weapon. With the limited system, that is no longer true. If you do not get Liv's weapon before this patch is over, you don't have a way to get her 6-star weapon anymore. Until they introduce some way we get Phylotree items that are no longer available, this thing's just gone. There is no going back and going after it at 80% rate up whenever you want. And that is a big, big setback. I think that's probably far and away the worst part of this change to a limited system, because unlike Cubs, it is not at all uncommon for a S-rank construct to have a lot of their kit tied up in their signature weapon. We have been getting characters lately that don't require their signature weapon to function. You can still play their base kit, you can still do their rotations, and not really suffer that much for not having the 6-star weapon, other than not being able to harmonize and resonate. But that opportunity to do it later always kind of made that feel not too bad. Now there is just straight up FOMO with weapons. If you do not build enough currency to pull the weapon during the patch, you're just stunk. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. The weapon's gone, and you don't know when you're going to get another chance to pull it. We know eventually they are going to give us chances to get limited banner or limited characters, weapons, and Cubs somewhere down the road, but we don't know when, and we don't know the specifics of how. Now, I will say, just like I talked about with the constructs, if down the road there is a Phylotree Nexus weapon-only banner, where even if you whiff, you are guaranteed to get one of the newest weapons for one of the newest characters, okay, that is a decently okay option to have available, because then if you whiff on the weapon, okay, maybe you get a weapon for another S-rank construct you didn't get the first time, and you still don't feel that bad about whiffing. And worst comes to worst, you whiff, you still get to turn it into a weapon resonance, so it's not nothing, right? But even if that were to come to pass, even if we get a Phylotree weapon banner where it's like, okay, you can only get the weapon of these last 5 constructs, there is no junk old weapon you're ever going to pull from this, still doesn't change the fact that there is notable FOMO now when you come to the weapon banner. And that is just not something you want to have. That's not something that feels good. And it's a big, big deterrent to free-to-play and low-spending players. So this is where I feel like we have an issue where some considerations should be made or looked at. I feel like that if you keep this system intact but change weapons to be 100% rate up, then we're kind of having a fair conversation where it's okay, your window is limited, you only have a set amount of time to pull this thing, but when you get to 30 pity, you are getting the weapon guaranteed. I think that change would make it much more reasonable. The change I would rather just see, because I get why they don't want to do that. You like having something that you could encourage people to spend a little more money on. Kuro does need to make money to continue making the game. Maybe we just take weapons out of the limited pool. I think if you remove the weapons and just do the construct, just do the cub, both at 100% rate up, then I feel like the limited summoning system feels a lot less punishing and a lot less of a deterrent to new and free to play players. I don't know that either of these things would happen. I sincerely doubt it, if I'm being honest with you. But if I could change anything about the Phylotree system, it would be either making the weapon guaranteed at 100% rate up or just not having the weapons be involved in the system, period. Because I think that is the one part where this feels extra bad, and it can put players in a bad spot of having to decide, do I just invest extra rolls now on this thing and possibly miss out on a future weapon or a future character, or do I just have to eat it and go, I'm not getting this weapon and I don't know when the next chance to get it will come. Neither of those are good feels. Neither of those are places you really want to be making your decisions about how to roll on the gacha. But it is what it is for now, and I don't see a lot changing anytime soon. The Phylotree system, to me, writ large, kind of feels like a response to the global sync causing a number of high spenders to either leave the game entirely or to cut back drastically on spending because they didn't want to buy 2 and 3 patches worth of packs in a single patch. And completely understandable. I also cut back my spending quite a bit during the global sync because there's no way I could be buying that many packs when we have everything condensed down into a triple or double patch. And they did implement things to make that, less punishing. We have the which one is it right now? These things, the more rainbow cards you buy and spend, the more extra rewards you get. And those certainly help during the global sync. But again, a notable number of whales and spending players either left the game for the global sync or cut back their spending notably. So the Phylotree system feels kind of like a little bit of, we need to kind of get ourselves back on track and get a little bit more money. I don't think it's unreasonable for Kuro to try and recoup some of the costs they might have lost from whales quitting via this method. But there's still no denying that it doesn't feel great knowing that all 3 gacha aspects of building new characters now has a strict time limit in place with this new Phylotree Nexus system. The one thing that I think is a net positive with the Phylotree system is it has allowed Kuro to lay out exactly who is coming down the pipe in terms of new constructs. This does eliminate some of that guesswork and some of that potential FOMO of, okay, we're all synced up, we don't actually know who's coming for an S-rank construct. You don't know if your favorite character in the entire game that you play PGR for is getting a new construct down the road. Well, with the Phylotree system, we kind of do. We know exactly who's coming for basically the first half of this year. And we already know with what we've learned about Teddy that some of them are going to be free. We already know that Teddy's going to be obtainable for free. So not every new S rank announced with that live stream and with the Phylotree system is going to force us into a situation where it's, okay, I got to get this done right here, right now, or I miss my shot. So that part is going to be at least somewhat helpful in alleviating the overall pressure and FOMO with this system. But it's hard to say whether this is a system that Kuro is going to stick with and this is just going to be how PGR works going forward for the rest of its lifespan, or if this limited system is acting as a testing ground to see how it impacts the overall sales and revenues for the game. No matter how you look at it, it is a very notable change to one of PGR's most consistent aspects. As I mentioned earlier, the gacha system has always been extremely consistent and extremely transparent. You know exactly what you need to do, how many rolls you need to invest to get whatever it is you want out of a given character's patch, whether it's however many copies of the character you want, whether you want the 6-star weapon or not, and whether you want the cub or not. You know exactly what you're getting into. And for the most part, that has not changed. None of the amount of rolls you have to do to guarantee yourself a copy of a character, a weapon, or a cub have changed, but the window to spin those rolls has, and that is a big difference for this game. And I know it's got a lot of people concerned about being able to keep up going forward if we're going to be constantly getting S-rank characters that utilize this Phylotree Nexus system. So now that I've had a few weeks to sit with it and kind of think it over, I didn't want to talk about this system right as it came out, because I think the urge to have a knee-jerk reaction and go, oh no, we have a limited system in PGR now, this sucks, is way too strong. So I did not want to do this video right as the patch was coming out, and I had more important things to take care of anyway, like the Live Guide, the Luna Leap Guide. There's still other stuff I need to do for this patch. So I wanted to sit on this one for a while before I actually sat down and wrote a small script to talk about it. But I'm curious how you all feel, especially if you are a free-to-play player, if you are a low spender. I want to know how you're feeling about this system going forward. Does it have you concerned about keeping up? Are you worried about not being able to get all the weapons you want to get? Do you have some hope and outlook that this system is going to create a better gacha system in the long run by limiting what pools of stuff you can get when things are available to be re-rolled on? Because that is a possible benefit down the road. As we've seen with the base banner, if things go long enough, you have a ton of units that have been released in this game over the years. And let's be real, of these units that I'm scrolling through right now, if you're rolling on the base banner, there's a whole lot of them you just don't want unless you like that version of the character and you're doing it for the collector aspect. If we're talking about getting actual value and getting units that keep up with current content and stuff like that, the vast majority of units that have been released are just outdated and aren't going to help you out very much in that aspect. So having a system where down the road maybe we're able to condense that down to, hey, there's only 5 characters on this banner. No matter who you get, you're getting someone good. You're getting someone that is fairly new and is impacting a meta team right now. That could be a plus down the road, but again, that's a big if. Is that a thing that's going to happen? How regularly is it going to happen? Are we only going to get one chance a year to go back and get the things we might have missed on a Phylotree banner for a given patch? We won't know for sure until we really start seeing the system play out throughout the next year of PGR. But I am curious how you're feeling about it and what you would like to see changed, if anything. I know a lot of people are just like, just get rid of this system outright, and I don't think that's an unreasonable stance to take. Taking one of the most consistent and not difficult things to deal with in terms of keeping up with your account on PGR and putting a time frame on it, that's a change, and it's not one that a lot of people are going to feel super good about no matter how you slice it. So as always, I welcome y'all's input and feedback down in the comments. I think it's really important to talk about major changes like this with constructive thoughts and constructive considerations. Like I said, it's really easy to knee-jerk and be ultra negative about something like limited summons. And again, I do not blame you if you see this as purely a negative thing for PGR writ large. I don't think that is an unfair stance to take, but it's a topic of conversation I feel is worth going over, and again, now that it's had some time to simmer, I wanted to go over it. So as always, I appreciate all y'all's support. I am going to be working on some more videos here very soon, including one that's going to outline a lot of the plans for this channel in 2026 and some updates on things that'll be involved with that. There's been some stuff going on with the content creator program that are frankly less than ideal, and it's absolutely impacting certain ideas I had for future endeavors on this channel, but that's something I'll discuss at another time. And I do want to acknowledge that right now the content creator liaisons are being very communicative and very willing to listen to not only my but all the other content creators' feedback and input on some of the changes that are currently impacting that program right now. So hopefully we get a good update on that going forward, but there are some things that are definitely impacting my overall plans with PGR content going forward. Don't worry, I'm not disappearing. I'm not going to stop making PGR content or anything like that, but it may impact the kind of videos I make and how I make them and how often I make them, depending on how this shakes out over the coming months and depending on how laying out my plans for 2026 are received and all that good stuff. But we'll deal with that another time. I've yapped long enough for today, as I am wont to do, and if you're wondering why I've yapped so long, hi, welcome to the channel. This is what I do. I talk too much. As always, I appreciate you all. If you want to do all the YouTube garbage, like, comment, subscribe, it's always appreciated. It's never necessary. But I will be back with more videos here very soon. I hope you all are having a good holiday season. If you've been in the path of this winter storm that has been wrecking my neck of the woods, please stay safe, drive carefully, all that good stuff. And yeah, I will catch you all in the next one. But for now, y'all be good, take care of each other, and I'll see you soon. Peace.